Darth Maul was modeled after classical depictions of the devil, as well as Hindu and pagan entities. The character of Darth Maul went through countless redesigns in a search for the perfect mix of scary, but not too scary, for children. Ancient depictions of various devils which strike at an audience's more inherent fears became the primary source of inspiration. As scholar Bill Moyers opined in a conversation with Lucas, Maul is the evil other but with powerful human traits. In that same sit-down, Lucas noted several of the more direct sources for Maul's intimidating appearance. His horns come from classical depictions of Satan, as in John Milton's Paradise Lost and the writing of Dante Alighieri, but also from ancient Pagan. The First Order is based on fallen Reich Loyalists hypothetically reorganizing in South America. The Galactic Empire is obviously based on the Third Reich, and so it makes sense that the First Order, which rose from the ashes of the Empire, would be based on the remnants of the Third Reich, or at least a hypothetical about them. Was true for the Galactic Empire. Several high-ranking members of the Nazi Party escaped justice at the end of World War II, with many fleeing to South America. The First Order was meant to invoke this uncomfortable historical truth and then take it one step further, as director J. Abrams told Vanity Fair. It was almost like if the Argentine Third Reich members had sort of got together and actually started to bring that back in some real form. In the same interview, Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy made note of the upgraded totalitarian aesthetic of the First Order. Evil needs to feel and look very real. What that means today may not be as black and white as it might have been in 1977, coming off a kind of WW2 sensibility. The Empire's marching formations and aesthetics are modeled after the Third Reich. There are endless parallels to be drawn between the Star Wars Galactic Empire and the reality of the Third Reich, and Lucas isn't shy about acknowledging the similarities. He regularly refers to Imperial officers as members of the Third Reich in various film commentaries. Lucas also directed his costume designers to look to history for inspiration. As costume designer John Mallow recalls, we didn't look at any films specifically, but had a lot of books. All the books there were on science fiction and science fiction films, books on World War II, on Vietnam, and on Japanese armor. George made pronouncements of a general nature. He wanted the imperial people to look efficient, totalitarian, fascist, and the rebels, the goodies, to look like something out of a Western or the US Marines. He said, "You've got a very difficult job here, because I don't want anyone to notice the costumes. They've got to look familiar, but not familiar at the same time." As such, officers of the Empire weren't exactly parading around in replica uniforms, but there were some other aesthetic corollaries that are difficult to ignore. There's the cold efficiency of their actions, the intimidating emblem, and, of course, the Stormtroopers' penchant for marching in rigid formation, a key trademark of authoritarian regimes. Podracing is built on the tradition of chariot races and Ben-Hur. Podracing is one of the most divisive aspects of the Star Wars franchise. Some find it to be visually stimulating good fun, and others think it's so silly, impractical, and dangerous that it breaks the suspension of disbelief. But even those latter traits are further similarities between podracing and the real ancient sport that inspired it, chariot racing. In fact, other than substituting horses for enormous turbine engines, they are practically the same activity. Anakin's dramatic podrace against Sebulba in The Phantom Menace is very reminiscent of one of the most important historical films, Ben-Hur. Not only does the whole thing come off as a near shot-for-shot remake of that film's Chariot race, the celebratory parade that concludes the film is also shamelessly cribbed from the 1959 classic. The Senate and Colosseum scenes are modeled after ancient Rome. There's a lot of ancient Rome in Star Wars, which is to be expected, given how influential that empire has been on everything that has come after it. Consider that it's not just the Galactic Senate that is heavily based on the Roman Senate, but also every subsequent real-world Senate in existence. Both the historical and fictional senates would tragically lapse into totalitarianism, and there are multiple parallels in their fall. As historian Tony Keene writes in Star Wars and History, one very direct allusion to ancient Rome comes in Attack of the Clones. Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Padme Amidala are to be executed in a Colosseum-esque arena through combat with ferocious beasts. Those three managed to make it out alive, but most historical gladiators weren't quite as lucky. Palpatine was inspired by many figures, but mostly Nixon. It shouldn't come as much of a surprise that Chief Palpatine, cinema's greatest galactic dictator, was inspired by a real-world tyrant, but, as it turns out, he's actually inspired by multiple real-world tyrants. Parallels have been drawn between the Emperor and figures like the Third Reich leader, Pinochet, and various leaders of the Soviet Union, but the political bad boy that Lucas really had in mind when designing Palpatine was Richard M. Nixon. Lucas spoke directly about it as early as a behind-the-scenes featurette for Return of the Jedi, when he was asked if Palpatine was a former Jedi, responding, "No, he was a politician." Richard M. Nixon was his name. He subverted the Senate and finally took over, and became an imperial guy, and he was really evil. But he pretended to be a really nice guy. He sucked Luke's father into the dark side. Lucas expanded on that thought in a 2005 interview with the Chicago Tribune, saying it was really about the Vietnam War, and that was the period where Nixon was trying to run for a second term, which got me to thinking historically about how do democracies get turned into dictatorships, because the democracies aren't overthrown, they are given away. The Jedi function similarly to orders like the Japanese samurai and the Knights Templar. Like a lot of the aspects of Star Wars lore, the Jedi Order doesn't take inspiration from just one historical reference, but many. Their traditional and deadly bladed devices, rigid code of honor, and important military role are reminiscent of ancient samurai and their Bushido code. Plus, Darth Vader's outfit is straight out of the Japanese history books. The Jedi's reticence for mayhem, combined with their extreme proficiency at doling it out, calls to mind Shaolin monks. Lucas took his most direct influence, however, from the legendary Knights Templar. According to historian Terence McMullen, both Jedi Knights and Templars were esteemed above other knights for their austerity, devotion, and moral purity. Like the Jedi, they practiced individual poverty within a military monastic order that commanded great material resources. Both orders were governed by a 12-member council, traveling far and wide to dispense peace and justice. They were also easily identifiable by their robes. In addition, both of them were all but eradicated when a purge of their ranks was ordered by King Philip Roman IV in 1307 in the case of the Knights Templar, and by Emperor Palpatine's Order 66 for the Jedi. Stormtroopers were specialized German soldiers in World War I. Stormtroopers were specialized German soldiers in World War I.
Hey guys, thank you so much for the support and likes and comments down below, and also thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to see you in the next video then. Take care. Bye.